Could I have some water, please? The voice was gentle, laced with a soft accent and a natural grace that came not from timidity, but from decades of practice navigating spaces that didn't always welcome difference. The flight attendant paused mid-step, turned, and tilted her head with mock politeness. "Excuse me?" she said, drawing out the syllables with an air of condescension. "Water," the woman repeated, still smiling politely, her hands resting in her lap. The flight attendant, blonde and buttoned up tight in the airline's navy uniform, gave a dramatic nod of understanding. "Oh," she said with a theatrical sigh. "Water. We do speak English here. You know." A few passengers chuckled. One of them, a middle-aged man in a business suit, leaned slightly out of his seat to get a better look at the exchange. Another, a young mother across the aisle, offered her daughter a sidelong glance, whispering something behind her palm. But the woman in 19C didn't flinch. She didn't bristle, didn't explain herself. Instead, she looked the flight attendant straight in the eye and said calmly, "Thank you." Her name was Dr. Leona Sarmiento, a 44-year-old Filipino-American born in Cebu and raised in San Jose. A woman of poise and purpose, Leona had long since learned how to read the room, how to pick her moments. She wasn't just another traveler. She was the chief legal advisor for the National Aviation Standards Committee, one of the few people in the country with direct influence over airline licensing, regulation, and in-flight conduct standards. And no one on board that late afternoon flight from San Francisco to Washington, D.C., including the smug flight attendant, had the slightest idea who she was. Leona didn't fly private, though she could. She preferred commercial travel not for appearances, but because it reminded her of who she served. She believed in proximity to the people she fought for. She believed that to truly reform the system, you had to stay inside it, breathe its air, witness its flaws up close. Her advocacy wasn't theoretical. It was personal. She wore no jewelry, no makeup beyond a light layer of foundation and mascara. Her dark hair was pinned in a loose bun, and her clothes were simply soft cream blouse, tailored slacks, and black flats. Her only bag was a worn leather laptop case tucked beneath the seat in front of her. She had boarded without fanfare, passing through security like any other passenger, carrying her identity not as a badge of status, but as a quiet, powerful truth. From the moment Leona stepped on the plane, the flight attendant, whose name tag read Sloan, had been performing her duties with a thin veil of professionalism, sweetened by the subtle sourness of bias. She smiled at the white businessmen, exchanged flirty banter with a pair of college boys in polo shirts, and handed out snacks with unbothered efficiency. But when passengers of color approached, her tone shifted. She asked an elderly Latina woman if she was in the right row. She told a teenage black boy to make sure he didn't touch anything he shouldn't. And when Leona asked for water, Sloan saw her accent, not her credentials. Earlier in the flight, Sloan had leaned over during boarding to ask, "Where are you from?" Her voice was syrupy, faux friendly. "California," Leona replied, smiling. "No, I mean originally." Sloan pressed, as if Leona had misunderstood. Leona recognized the dance. It wasn't curiosity, it was categorizing. Her accent was light, a softened edge that slipped out occasionally, the product of speaking Ilongo at home and English in courtrooms for decades. And Sloan had made her judgment based on that single syllable. Still, Leona didn't respond with fire. She didn't have to. She knew who she was. She knew what she carried. And in her line of work, restraint wasn't weakness, it was power. The hours passed. The plane hummed its steady rhythm above the clouds, and most of the passengers settled into books, movies, or light naps. Leona worked quietly on her tablet, preparing notes for the closed-door policy session awaiting her in D.C. It was a crucial meeting, one that would shape the next wave of reforms in commercial aviation, particularly around cultural competence and in-flight staff conduct. Then, turbulence struck. The seatbelt sign lit up with a sharp chime, followed by a voice from the cockpit urging everyone to remain seated. The aircraft shuddered lightly, not dangerously, but enough to wake a few sleeping passengers and send a ripple of anxiety through the cabin. Moments later, a coughing fit erupted from row 22. A man with olive-toned skin, wearing a dark green windbreaker, leaned forward in his seat, hacking uncontrollably. He hit the call button, his hand trembling. Sloane, standing near the galley, rolled her eyes and leaned over to speak quietly to the flight marshal, who sat near the back in plain clothes. "Of course. It's him," she muttered, barely audible but just loud enough for Leona, and unfortunately, a few others, to hear. The man's accent was Middle Eastern. Leona clocked it instantly. So did the woman in 17A, who shot Sloane a look of discomfort. Sloane grabbed a miniature water bottle and a tissue, walked briskly to the man, shoved both into his hand, and disappeared without a second glance. Leona unbuckled her seatbelt, ignoring the warning light. She rose from her seat and walked down the aisle, her steps purposeful, calm. She reached the man and knelt beside him. "Sir, are you okay?" she asked gently. He shook his head. "Wheezing. Asthma," he managed. "Two left my inhaler in my bag." Leona immediately pulled her carry-on from the overhead compartment, unzipped it, and retrieved her travel medical kit. "It's okay," she said calmly. "I have training. We'll find it together." The man nodded, eyes wide with gratitude. She found his inhaler in his side pocket, handed it to him, and stayed there until his breathing stabilized. Then, quietly, she gestured to another flight attendant, a younger man with a softer demeanor, and asked him to bring a second bottle of water and a blanket. A few minutes later, the man was resting more comfortably, eyes closed, breathing easier. Sloane returned, feigning concern. "Oh, good," she said, her voice saccharine. "I guess he's fine now." Leona stood, turned to face her. "Yes," she replied, her voice steady and kind. "I'm glad I was able to help." Sloane blinked. "And you are?" "Dr. Leona Sarmiento," she said, extending her hand. "Medical training, legal counsel, and lead advisor for the National Aviation Standards Committee." The smirk fell off Sloane's face like a mask. "Tu didn't realize." She stammered. "You didn't need to," Leona replied. "You just needed to treat your passengers with dignity." The nearby rows had gone silent. The businessman in 18B suddenly found the window fascinating. The young mother in 17A gave Leona a small, approving smile. Sloane tried to salvage the moment. "Would you like an upgrade? Or maybe a complimentary?" "I'm fine," Leona said, returning to her seat. "But you might want to reread your airline's policy manual, especially the section on cultural bias and passenger respect." Sloane backed away. The rest of the flight passed uneventfully. Leona sipped her water, brought this time by the younger attendant, and finished her notes. When the plane landed in Washington, D.C., Sloane was waiting near the exit. She offered a mumbled apology, eyes darting. Leona didn't raise her voice. She didn't shame her. She simply said, "Next time, let your professionalism speak louder than your prejudice." And then she walked off the plane. But the story didn't end there. The woman in 17A, a writer and mother named Shauna Malik, had recorded part of the exchange, not for likes or views, but because she wanted her daughter to see an example of composure under pressure. She posted the short clip to her social media later that night with a caption that read, "Flight attendant mocks Filipino-American woman's accent, regrets it when she finds out who she is." The video exploded. Comments poured in. She didn't raise her voice. She raised the standard. Filipino excellence. Unbothered. Unshaken. This is what grace and power look like. The airline issued a statement within 24 hours, confirming that the crew member involved was under review and had been placed on immediate retraining for professional conduct and cultural awareness. Leona, true to form, declined all interview requests. She didn't need to speak. Instead, she showed up to the meeting in D.C., laid out a detailed plan for enhanced in-flight staff training, and introduced a new protocol aimed at multilingual passenger engagement. The committee passed the measure unanimously, but the impact had already begun. Because change doesn't always start with press conferences or protests. Sometimes, it starts in row 19, with a glass of water and a woman who refuses to let ignorance shape her dignity. And the next time someone says water with an accent you don't recognize, listen closely. You might be speaking to someone who's flown farther than you'll ever know.